Hello and welcome to a new episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm Anya Chrysanthemum.
Hey, I'm John Lee.
And today we're talking about putting it all together.
This is episode 11, and the first 10 episodes are really just building up to this finale in a sense. So if this is the first time you listen to this episode, I encourage you to go back and kind of learn those fundamental classes basically in this educational series about, MarTech for new homes. But basically in this final episode here, we're talking about creating an e-commerce ecosystem. And why is e-commerce so important? Well, unless you've been in the cave for 20 years, you know that e-commerce is basically taking over the world. Just to give some definitions here, some people don't even know what the E for e-commerce means, but it's electronic commerce. And it's referring to all the online activity that involves the buying and selling products and services online. And just to give you some statistics, this is per Salesforce, there's been about $5 trillion in worldwide e-commerce this year. And just to put that in perspective, the biggest industry in the US is actually real estate, and that's less than half of that total e-commerce number. Overall, e-commerce constitutes about 18% of retail sales, and that's only growing. And they actually expect by 2040, 95% of all purchases are expected to be transacted via e-commerce. So it really is where things are going. And 22% of the world's populations already shop online. And this is a statistic that's actually starting to really evolve here. 73% of shoppers use multiple channels to shop now, including Google, social media, and email. And if you listen to a previous episode that we had, we're really showing you that e-commerce, which used to be going to a dedicated site like Amazon, is now proliferated across multiple channels, from Facebook to TikTok to Instagram and almost every other social media platform. They're allowing you to not just see the product, but actually purchase the product online. And this is actually driving into a whole new category of commerce, which is called headless commerce. It's headless, that it's no longer devoted to just a single channel. And you can see that proliferation, like we said, with search becoming commerce, social becoming commerce. Headless commerce, and just put it in relationship to our industry, this is actual term too. It's called monolithic website commerce. Monolithic was actually built around the idea of, a giant stone. That's what a monolithic is. But in the systems world, monolithic means that the system is indivisible. It's uniform. And why does that have any meaning to this? Traditionally, websites have been the major channel to search and find new homes. And they had a dedicated CMS, which is a content management system. So that content management system only serviced that website channel. What's happening now, because you're seeing all these channels get into commerce, e-commerce, you're going toward what I call prolific headless omnichannel commerce ecosystem. Prolific means that, unlike monolithic, it's everywhere. But the reason it's called headless is because it's on all the different channels, which is going to constitute a whole new platform, which is called headless CMS. Headless CMS means that all this product and customer data and all the content that goes along with it, all your photos and videos and everything else that's supporting the product, it sits in one back-end content management system. But it's headless in that every time there's a new channel that pops up or becomes popular, let's say like TikTok, or even Twitter, or smartphones, or smart mirrors, it takes that content and it automatically syncs it up, but it presents it in the formats and the experience of that particular device or channel. So instead of the way it currently is done, if you have a content management system for, say, just your website, you have to now go download all those images and upload it to LinkedIn or Facebook and all these other places. In a headless CMS approach, you input in one place and it proliferates across all channels. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Surprisingly, I was going to say, about 5 seconds ago, we probably lost 90% of listeners here, but it does make sense. And sounds like it's a lot less work for marketers.
Exactly. What we want to do is make it obviously connecting for today's consumer. So if you think about it from a consumer's perspective, you already see that that's actually happening. From a marketing perspective, you want to do something that's easy to maintain, but also it's all in sync and it's all sending your, the right message to the right platform at the same time. How does this extend to e-commerce? It actually now extends e-commerce into being an e-commerce ecosystem. We can no longer just do e-commerce for just websites. I know that's in pursuit right now, which is great. But if you only do it for that one channel, unless you think everybody's only going to shop that channel and only stay in that channel in their long, arduous new homes customer journey, that's not going to work. You're going to need to build an e-commerce ecosystem for new homes. So how do we create this e-commerce ecosystem, and why do you need to do this? Well, first of all, e-commerce, if you go back to our previous episode, there's still some fundamental things to the marketing and sales cycles that transcends any new platforms. You still have to attract the audience. You still have to engage your prospects. You have to nurture those leads, and you have to convert those sales. Those fundamentals still exist. But what happens, e-commerce takes it online. And why is that good? Because not only people shopping online, but it overcomes the physical and human limitations of a brick and mortar approach. And how does it do that? Well, with e-commerce, and this just happens to be our acronym of a new go here, the A, it accelerates conversions. And that's the last piece there is converting, because at the end of the day, you're trying to convert sales, and it accelerates conversions because it's using our direct to consumer approach. It streamlines the process, and it's not impeded by physical limitations of having to meet with someone, or the time of day, or the location, and being handed off from different people. So it accelerates that conversion. The end part is it helps you navigate this e-commerce omnichannel customer journey. So wherever you go, you start where you left off in a personalized way. And it also brings the relevant content to not just you in a personalized way, but where you are in that sales funnel. You don't need to be introduced about your brand anymore when you already been using it across 3 channels for 3 weeks. The E part, it enriches the customer experience. Part of that engagement, that stickiness is that engagement, and that engagement is only meaningful and practical if it enriches that customer experience. So once you get in, you should be more and more excited. This should be a fun shopping experience, not a laborious one. The W part, which is really gets back to the attraction, it widens the audience reach. No longer are you limited to where your Google ads appear. No longer are you limited to just a geographic net that you're casting with your email campaigns and all that. Everybody's coming to us marketplace, and you're going to discover people that would have never discovered you in a singular channel. This transcends all the physical limitations, all the human interaction. So it widens that audience reach. The G part, which is really nurturing that customer down this sales journey, e-commerce generates more leads. As you see, more and more people are shopping online. So you have to be online, but it generates more leads because not just the attraction, but that engagement and the excitement of it. So e-commerce is a great way to capture those leads because they have to register to start where they left off. So they want to continue that journey. And most importantly, for as a business and for builders, because you have limited time and limited assets and limited resources, and you actually want to make money, the O part, it optimizes profitability. It is able, using AI, to see what is the most popular plan, what is the ones that's struggling on selling that home site, and it matches the buyer with your offering so that you can optimize conversions, but also optimize profitability. I mean, maybe it automatically raises the price by 10% when more than 20 people look at it. So using e-commerce, you're able to use a digital technology tool that can never be understood, replicated, or maintained by a human.
So you figure less than 20 years from now, most of the business is going to be done online. And I think for a lot
even
of
if
people,
you're in person, it'll still be done online. Just like when you check out at the grocery store, you're still using your credit card. So e-commerce does not necessarily mean that it's all online, but it means like all the transactions are going to be done, digitally.
Makes sense. Okay. If you think about e-commerce and how far we've come just in the last 2 years, it's not shocking to me to hear those numbers. Some of the interesting things that I recently read was that for a lot of buyers, encountering a human, AKA going into your sales center, was actually deterrent in purchasing a new home. So this comes from a latest Zillow study. They said upwards, I want to say it's 46% of all buyers said the reason why they didn't buy new construction was because, quote unquote, pushy salespeople. Mm-hmm. So,
as a personal anecdote about, the possibilities of the future, 20 years ago, when I was trying to get a $2.5 million credit line for my new startup, and I was going to a national banker, and she asked me for my business model. I said, well, part of it is we're going to actually be getting into e-commerce, And she didn't understand what that was, obviously, back then. And she says, well, what does that entail? And I said, well, people will be buying things online. So how are they going to buy online? I said, well, they have to use credit cards. And then she basically closed her notebook and said, actually, we can't loan you the money. I said, why not? She says, because we sell credit cards and we know there's no way that people are going to put their credit cards information online. And I wonder how she shops now, but I would assume she uses a credit card. So let me tell you about the world before e-commerce, and some of us are still living there, particularly in our industry. Before e-commerce, again, those four facets of marketing and sales still apply. But back then, when it was only paper, the marketing people really just sent out their brochures, and that was really just to attract the audience. And then the rest of it required manual intervention of meeting with the salesperson to take you through the sales process. Okay, then websites took over, right? And I call this website 1.0, and many of us are still in website 1.0. They still primarily focus on the marketing function of attracting, the audience. It didn't get into the engagement of even interacting or pricing any of those products. Website 2.0, in a sense, in the last 5 years particularly, now you can go and do interactive floor plans, see different colors, maybe get some pricing. So they've moved to the engagement stage, but they still, from the nurturing and converting the buyers, which is really the sales process, that's still done offline. So if you look at the four facets of what it takes to buy a house, you need to find it, design it, maybe experience it, and then buy it. Pre-e-commerce, the buyer relies, is forced to use the builder to navigate the sales funnel and a salesperson to buy the home. So here's the new future e-commerce world. We're going to allow the buyer to do everything online, the find part, the design part, the experience part, and the buy part, all online. We're going to give the power to the people, which is going to be customer driven instead of seller driven. That means that basically everyone has their own virtual shopping cart that shops across all the different channels that your product and your brand are represented in, whether it's on social media or an email campaign or in the marketplace. So their virtual shopping cart goes with them, and they have their own My Home website as opposed to going to a generic builder's general store website. If the buyers choose, again, it's all about choice. If they choose, they can navigate the entire cycle and sales funnel on their own. But if they still would like your personal assistance or even a virtual assistant, they can also choose that option as well. So what are some of these e-commerce trends just in general? Shoppers now have a vast product knowledge, so many tools that they can access information, and 82% use online reviews before visiting a business or buying a product. The average person reads 10 reviews before really trusting a business. So that means that you need to have those elements of trust to give you credibility. I always say, to be incredible, you have to be credible. The other thing about e-commerce, the shoppers, they really want a new way to search and engage. We've been offering the same way to search for homes for the last 20 years. Amazon and Netflix have trained users that discovering new content and converting should only take a few clicks. Also, buyers are no longer locked into one channel to shop like print mediums. You used to get a newspaper, and the only way you could learn more about that outside of contacting the actual salesperson was to just read in that article or whatever is limited in there. Now, obviously, buyers can refer to other channels. But the problem is, because our websites evolve from those print mediums, they have that same walled channel mindset that they come to our website and they will stay there and they will only learn from us there. Reality is they're no longer walled. They are one click away from learning more about you and getting social guidance. The other thing about searching and engaging is the brands that use visual content, they see 111% increase in conversions and 180% increase in revenue per user. That's particularly important in such a complex product like ours, where you're selling on a visual appeal. That's why renderings and virtual tours are so important to attracting and retaining those customers.
I want to say 70% of buyers need that tool in order to make a decision, like a 3D tour or to be able to visualize. And it's really, like I said earlier, it's not one or the other. It's a combination of using the tools and being comfortable using those tools, especially early on in the process. So they can figure out, okay, of all these builders, maybe these are the three that I'm actually considering seriously. And then it still involves that human touch. So we're not going 100% online, at least not just yet. I want to say something like 5% of all people said that they're actually comfortable making a purchase for a home entirely online without ever visiting a model. But upwards of 30% feel somewhat comfortable, meaning that they are okay with making an offer online by using those visuals, and then they still need to come in and visit. But as you can expect, that number is going to continue to grow.
62% of Gen Zs and millennials, they want visual search capabilities when they shop. I mean, yeah, I know we spent a lot of time writing a lot of stuff about our brand on our builder websites, but you think about Instagram, they don't sit there and say, well, wonderful blouse with floral prints in size medium. They show a beautiful person wearing it and interacting with it. They don't need all the talk, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And then augmented reality is going to take that into a whole nother level, because it's going to put them right in front of them. Maybe they're wearing it, or maybe they're immersed in it. And that's going to contribute $122 billion in e-commerce spending by next year. Shoppers also want brands that understand their preferences. It's not just them shopping the brand needs to respond to them. And 51% are more likely to make a purchase from a brand if that content is personalized. And this will only grow as AI and virtual assistants, whether it's Siri, Alexa, and we have our own, which we're calling Sophie. They provide users even more customized shopping experience, and they expect 40% per year compound growth in virtual assistants over the next 5 years. And the other thing about e-commerce now for shoppers, it's everywhere. Like I said, it's on multiple channels, and e-commerce now exists beyond traditional website boundaries. We say with social media, they built shopping carts into their social platforms, selling visually. So what are the essential ingredients to e-commerce? Well, there's only 3 basic ingredients, and they start with C, is content, channels, and customers. And at an e-commerce level, you need interactive content, you need interactive channels, and you need online customers. And then those e-commerce essential ingredients, the critical piece is marketing channels, because marketing channels, they connect and funnel the customers and the content. So if you look at this layered cake here, the monolithic websites, it's a single layer. All the customers and content are in the same place, and the channel kind of puts the icing on top, and you're kind of locked in there. But who wants a one-layered cake? People want to have multi-layer cakes because they're going through a multi-channel shopping journey. As they go from content and different channels, the channels connect the customers and the content across the channels. And that's where you have this prolific omni-channel experience. I'm hopefully using the visuals to help explain this complicated thing, but maybe a simpler way to understand it is the coffee that goes with the cake. When you pour the content at the top, it goes through the channel, which is the filter of your ground coffee, to then filter down to the customers. For a lot of people that have understood traditional sales funnels, they said, wait a minute, that's upside down. The customers funnel down. No, in an e-commerce situation, the content, the products come to the customers. The problem is if the channel, the filter, is old, it's not clean, it doesn't do a good job of filtering the right content, it will never get down to the customers in a tasteful, meaningful, and expedient way. Same thing with the layered cake. If those channels, which is the icing in between all those layers, isn't tasty enough, and it doesn't have that stickiness, and it doesn't connect the customers with the content, nobody wants to eat it. That's why an e-commerce thing has to be multi-channel, and that channel is the key filter and glue to connect the content with the customers.
I don't know how you come up with the visuals of cake and coffee, but it makes sense.
Well, because we're going to have a party here, and here's the problem with the party. The e-commerce ecosystem obstacles, everything has an obstacle. Now, the good thing over the last 20 years, especially we've been with Rendering House, we've created a lot of great content, and so has everybody else in the industry, from photos, videos, descriptions, and everything, and content has exploded. It's like all this confetti that's exploded at this party, okay? The customers, they're excited. They're already there. They love that content. I mean, they're ready to party. They got the coffee and the cake out there. The problem right now is the channels are late to the party. They show up there with their flip phone, and it just doesn't resonate. And using that analogy, you have to evaluate for e-commerce, is your website a flip or a smartphone? And basically, is this static versus an interactive or app website? Now, they both functionally work at a basic level. The flip phones have the basic functions, in our case, is basic marketing, but it's not data-driven and there's no AI. Whereas an interactive app website has advanced functions like a smartphone and is data-driven content, and it utilizes AI. Flip phone, traditional website, they have generic static pages. I mean, it's very limited format. and you only get that way. And it's really built for page navigation, SEM, just like, that phone is really just built for answering phone calls, which sounds weird now. In an interactive website, it's personalized, dynamically generated content and pages based on the customer's customization settings. And each return visit, you start where you left off, and you can save all your favorites, just like your smartphone. You have your unique apps that are on there, and each one knows your personalized settings for it. On top of it, with your apps, it automatically generates private websites for each of the registered users, and it brings the content to the user through notifications and things like that. That's why it's called a smartphone. And it tracks the shopping journey and the product selections of every lead. The flip phone, the basic stuff, doesn't keep all that stuff. It may keep your contact information, great for leads, but you don't know what they're doing. On an interactive app website, it also supports all these new functionalities like AR, VR, MR, and it integrates and syncs all that up with other apps in your omnichannel ecosystem. A basic phone, flip phone, you can't interact and connect with other channels and applications. On an interactive website, hopefully, you can use AI to provide those matches and notifications and that unique content. And finally, on the flip phone, if you still have one, and it's probably about 10, 15 years old now, it's really hit its development ceiling. It was great for its time, but the problem is if you want a new version, you actually have to go out and replace it. You can't just like change the software upgrade. It's a built-in 2 to 3 year replacement cycle until it just totally is obsolete. With an app website, not only can you find, design, experience, and buy online, take that whole customer journey, but it's a quick setup. It's a lower cost than a traditional website of building, hundreds of pages and $50,000, 6 months, a year, or whatever. It should be a quick setup, probably less than a couple of months, maybe half the price. And the beautiful thing about it, there is no replacement cycle, because like all your other apps, is continuously being upgraded with the latest features. You shouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 years. And then on top of that, tear everything up and then pay for a whole new flip phone. That's too disruptive. And you're actually behind the times, because you wait 2 or 3 years to replace it. You should have actually replaced it. You should have upgraded a month after you got it. And just to tell you how important channels are to the whole ecosystem, channels are critical to engagement and the sales funnel. If you look at the channels of the past in print, using this analogy, it's really like that mouse in a hamster wheel. They see that cheese on the other side and they run like crazy to try to get it, but they cannot reach it. And because the print channel prevents content engagement. It requires that offline sales assistant. You see that classified ad, you can't do any more but read it over and over and over again. You actually have to call that phone number or schedule a visit. Okay, websites improved it a little bit. The content attracts it. The mouse in this situation is going through a maze to get that cheese. It's a less captive audience. You're not stuck in this hamster wheel, but you have to go and navigate this maze on your website to get to that cheese that you're looking for. And a lot of the places on that maze actually end up in dead ends. So that's what happens when you have a generic static website channel. It requires a lot of effort by the consumer to engage with that content. And again, it requires that offline sales assistance to actually get to that cheese. What we want to do with an app website and ecosystem, the content, the cheese attracts you, but it's available on any channel. So you can get the cheese on any channel, and you're able to immediately interact with that cheese immediately because it's brought to you in the way you want. And it's available without any sales assistance. You can just do it online. Okay, let's talk about one of the main ingredients, customers for e-commerce. And this is an essential ingredient. And why am I focusing on millennials? Those are the ones born between 1981 and 1996, because they are the largest buyers of new homes. And they're going to be the largest buyer of new homes for a long time, because they're the largest living generation in this country, 72 million millennials in the US. And, they grew up basically on e-commerce. They are the most digital buyers. 86% of millennials make purchases online, and they depend a lot on the ratings and reviews and social influencers. 99.9% had read reviews when shopping online. I mean, I can't even imagine anybody not reading any review ever when they've ever shopped online, versus 63% shopping when they're in store. So when they're doing online, they're really learning about that product. 67% of them prefer to search and purchase on e-commerce sites than in the store. And they're on social very frequently, 87% on Facebook, 86% YouTube, 71% on Instagram, 51% Snapchat, and then Twitter and Pinterest at 42%. And then TikTok is the fastest growing social platform with over 1 billion users per month. So we have to address this segment and the way they shop if you want to survive in e-commerce. The other obviously essential ingredient for e-commerce is that content. And that content now needs to be customizable so they can set whatever they want to see. They shouldn't have to discover it. They're going to set what they want. It should come to them personalized the way they set it. It should be experienceable and it should be transactionable. Basically, it's all in our world, data-driven visualizations. Basically whatever you can dream up, you'll see it configured and visualized that way. They want that rendering done in real time. They're not going to wait more than like 10 seconds. So it needs to be done that way for thousands of users simultaneously, 24/7 across all devices. You can't send this out for somebody to render and come back. They're gone. With this type of content, you get thousands for the price of one. And what the buyer can do is they can access a cloud database of thousands of builders, communities, plans, options, home sites, and vendor products. And all that availability comes to them the way they want it. That content needs to be personally rendered for that particular buyer through their matches and recommendation settings. And then once they get that content, they should be able to save it, compare it, share it, resume where they left off, and even collaboratively design with others online so that they get the house they want. And then once they're that far down, they should be able to buy it online with a financial transaction, digital signature. Why would you take them so far and then make them go offline? I mean, they're ready to buy right there. That's what e-commerce is all about.
Especially 46% of them could be scared off by interacting with your actual salesperson.
Exactly. So just real quickly on the e-commerce sales and marketing piece, those 4 facets are still important, but there are things that change. Attracting the audience. The marketplace is going to replace traditional search engines and websites as the top of the sales funnel because they can attract a larger audience. And then what they also offer versus a traditional website, those flip phone versions, they offer much better customer experience and functionality. Functionality will supersede form for attraction. I mean, that's why you go to Amazon. You can go there because it's beautiful. You go there because you can find what you want and transact it quickly. This is where the higher levels of marketing come into play. You can listen to that episode back then. Customization marketing. Basically, I want to have access to everything, but I don't want to look for everything. So customization marketing enables you to set your search criteria for that match and notify to deliver to you. The second part, engaging the prospects. This is where the higher levels of personalization experiential marketing facilitates that engagement across the synced channels via cross-channel personal My Home virtual shopping carts of your favorite designs. Basically, what that means is instead of you having to go to each channel and setting up a new account, your virtual shopping cart goes with you across all those channels. And your brand should be across all those channels. And they already are doing that. They're doing it in Facebook and websites and all that. Nurturing the leads. This is where the high level version of predictive marketing provides those recommendations as shoppers interact with the channel content. And it introduces marketing automation, which utilizes trigger events at each personal lead level to curate and drive that lead down personal sales funnels and shopping journeys 24/7. We don't have the luxury of having online sales counselors available 24/7 to watch what everybody's doing and guide them. Your AI, based on trigger events, should introduce promotions or invitations to take tours while they're in there. And then finally, in converting the sales, instead of making them meet with you and pulling out all this paperwork and mailing things out or whatever, this is where you see the convergence of MarTech, PropTech, and FinTech come together, because it actually takes PropTech and FinTech to come together to transact, to enable those financial transactions and those digital purchasing contracts online, like DocuSign. All right, hopefully we can wrap this up here real quick. So I'm just gonna go through the 4 steps here. To attract the customers. Customers are already there. We got content and channels. So what do you need to attract the customers in the future with e-commerce? The content. That content needs to have access to a huge repository of builders, plans, communities, options, and home sites. No more FOMO, no more fear of missing out, and it's all right there for you. It's already been curated by us instead of whatever Google decides to throw up there and navigating a ton of websites to find anything. In addition to actual product content, you actually want to have all your non-product content so you can learn everything about the wonderful reasons to buy new construction. It's where you go and learn and explore about new construction. And also you should be able to find a gathering of interested, like-minded buyers for social posting and reviews. And so if you have that kind of content available there, that channel needs to facilitate that. That channel needs to be a marketplace where you can discover and learn and explore new construction. And you can go down the whole shopping journey of finding, designing experience and buying it online across thousands of builders, plans, communities, options, home sites, and on any device. And you need to have all this cloud synced into this vast ecosystem, but at a personalized omnichannel online shopping level. That's what makes it very attractive. You have a massive access, but at a personalized level. On the content side, in addition to having all that content, it needs to be visually appealing, very attractive, from renderings of photos and future, AR, VR, MR. That channel needs to be able to support those platforms. It needs to utilize all these content forms and functions. It needs to provide social shopping. It needs to provide chatbots. If it doesn't, you're losing your message. You're disconnecting from your consumers. And then on the content side for attraction, it needs to all be personalized. On top of all those, all that attractive, wonderful content, it needs to be personalized product and marketing content. On the channel, you need to be able to provide that AI matching recommendations and notifications. It needs to cover the entire shopping journey from discovery to checkout, because if you drop off in any of those steps in that customer journey, you lost the customer. It's not even worth doing it at all if you can't do it all. Now, the second step is about really engaging a customer. Now that you've attracted them here, how do you keep them here? You don't want that bounce rate to go up. You want the engagement rate to go up. So on the content side, you need data-driven visualizations with real-time rendering. So now that they've been introduced to your product, it needs to start to make their dreams come true. So based on their interactions with articles, filters, and selections, all that, it starts to render what they're imagining. And that also obviously introduces interactive design and immersive experience content. Now the channel needs to be able to provide those design tools, those virtual tours, because if they can't host that, it's kind of like having Iron Man special effects, but now you're trying to do it on Broadway on a stage. The stage, which is the channel, dilutes and actually hurts the wonderful content that the actors and the special effects. So you have to have the stage go along with your content. And finally, on the content side, once they create all this stuff, they need to be able to save it, share it, edit it, and even create personalized brochures, because that is actually a great thing for the builder, that they're actually starting to do things not only on their own, but there are viral marketing endorsing you because they were socially influenced, but then they become the social influencer. The best way to get referrals and to build credibility is when your customers and others talk about you and not you talking about yourself. And what does the channel need to do? They need to have these ease of engagement. They need to not just have a gallery of homes. They need to have a search engine in there. So they need to have multiple search engines that you can browse if you want, and text and visual searches. You can do filters. You can have maps. You can have AI matching. You need to allow the buyers to be able to set their custom settings and criterion of their preferences and their search methods. The matching not only matches with them, but it brings it to them. It doesn't say, oh, this is a perfect car for you. Now go drive to the dealership to go look at it. No, it brings the products to the customers, and the buyers are not forced to go down these generic pages, these siloed website pages to find that content. This is sacrilege here, but for marketing on e-commerce, less traffic equals better customer experience. The real ratio should not be how many people came to your website and how long and how much they run around and even stayed there. The real ratio is page visits per conversion. You want to convert them with as least number of steps as you can, because they don't want to go walk over the place because basically you're forcing them to go through an Easter egg hunt or go down each page. And then when they come back as a repeat visit, they still have to go down all these silos. You basically forced them to go through all this. It's not that they wanted to go through all that. And then finally, you need, as a channel, to be able to provide this uniquely personalized shopping experience and journeys with social collaboration. So there is no static pages. As they keep going down the sales funnel, it needs to become more and more personalized.
As marketers, we always dream about user-generated content. So at this point, when it becomes so easy for them to create amazing content and share it,
you actually, as a marketing person, have an army of tens of thousands of people working for you 24/7 for free.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the components of e-commerce, is that it's network driven. So it's driven by your customers as they share information with each other. And another great thing about that is that so many of us now already do this. Like, say, if we're looking for a certain product or service, we go to Facebook and we ask for recommendations. So this is a great peer-to-peer recommendation vending site that, okay, so have used this builder, they love them, and this is the end result. Viral marketing.
Yes, and maybe all these marketers feel like there's no way I want to keep up with all these channels and maintain it all. Well, the headless CMS gives you a way to proliferate that data across all these channels in an easy way. But you don't have to maintain and navigate all these channels. Your consumers are going to Reddit, or they're going to, these like fringe type of channels, and they're bringing that content with them because they're storing it in their own content database in a sense, and it goes with them wherever they go. So you may actually reach somebody in Timbuktu, but you didn't spend Timbuktu to go get it. Now, nurturing those customers on the content side, what you want, obviously buying new homes is not just like a one-click first time visit thing. You want the returning visitors to see that product and that marketing content that's relevant to not just what they're looking for, but where relevant to the funnel stage that they're at, so they can start where they left off. So as a channel that you're creating, the shoppers need to have choice. They need to have a choice of a universal introductory generic experience. When I compare this like Disney World, first time you come to Disney World, you had to go see Mickey Mouse and the castle and everything. And so your website should give them that introductory experience. But if you're a returning visitor, you know which ride you want to go on. You want to just skip the lines and get that fast pass. And that's good for you to move them down the sales funnel. That fast pass lets them jump to a particular step, schedule a visit, contact the OSCs, or handle a transaction. Why do you need to make them walk all over the place with more pages and more misleading data analysis? Because that analysis doesn't tell you that this person is actually on stage 3. It just sees them as another visitor, and you don't know who to approach. The content piece, the second aspect of it, you want that content at this nurturing stage to be able to be collaboratively designed online. People can even offer recommendations, because this is where the concierge aspects gets to. They're very serious now. They narrowed it down from 10 to 3. I need guidance. They should be able to collaboratively design, offer recommendations, utilize virtual and OSC online sales counselor assistants if they need to. They need to be able to now really start to look at other shoppers' likes and reviews and ratings, because now they're really evaluating things. And they need to enable salespeople to be able to create and email personalized brochures and invite those very deep in the sales funnel customers to look at their online recommendations or add to their favorites or come schedule a visit. To do that, the channel needs on the back end, the builder, to be able to see where the buyers are in their sales funnel. They need to see their selection. They need to see their engagements. You can't just approach everyone as the same one. You have to approach them where they have been and where they want to go. So you need that back-end insights. And then you use automation, marketing automations, to set trigger events. And those trigger events will say, now that they've narrowed it down to these 3, it invites them in for something. Or they've looked at this lot 10 times. Okay, now there's a trigger event for that. It's automated, it's manual, it's personalized, and it creates automatic remarketing campaigns. And it also notifies the builders of when these triggers have been triggered, so that they can jump in if they want to with their own responses. And now we get to the last part, which is actually the easiest part, but this is where everybody is having the most trouble, is the converting the customer. Everything has to be done offline right now. With prop tech and fintech technology, they should be able to make the financial payment and digitally sign online for lot reservations, inventory home purchases, or design builds. Obviously, the channel needs to be able to create that e-commerce shopping cart engine to allow those transactions to happen. But also, it shouldn't stop there. That channel should take the buyer from that offer of purchase all the way to closing, and maybe even beyond after they even own that house, because we're not just selling a product, we're selling a home, and that the whole customer journey needs to be handheld and kept them updated all along the way, and even after purchase.
Yeah, and again, it comes all in a bunch of pieces, and there's lots of opportunities to continue that relationship.
Yeah, so here I am at this is my preaching part. We know that e-commerce ecosystem is critical for the success of our industry. There's only 3 things you got to worry about: customers, and that's the customer experience and getting them there, and they're already there. They want to do e-commerce. The content, we've done a lot of improvements there. We actually got too much content sometimes. we just haven't personalized it, but we have a lot of great interactive content, and there's still new technologies coming here. but you're only as strong as your weakest link. And right now, our weakest link is our channels, because we focused on only the website being the primary channel. We've never been open to a marketplace like Zillow has done and others to the existing home space, or even like Airbnb has done for rentals and Netflix for movies. Our industry needs a marketplace so you can learn all about it, and then from that, it needs to connect with other channels so that wherever the buyer goes, you meet them where they are. By creating a marketplace where most of that experience and that the channel has been built out without having to be Silicon Valley expert and having millions of dollars to invest in that, we bring the technology to the channel. You bring your content and you bring your marketing automation guidance into it. We'll bring the customers. We can continue the technology upgrade. This is where I think in the MarTech world, marketing has done as much as it could, which is really the content, but they cannot build, sustain, continue to innovate the technology platform. Unfortunately, the buyers come to you because of how attractive your channel is. They use Facebook because not only is it a repository for all the people they're looking for, but it's an easy interface and they can contribute to it. Our websites, they can't contribute to it. So it's a dead end for them, but it's a dead end for others. Yeah, we need to make it open. And the more open that we make it, the more people will come to it. And then the channel will then channel, this is why they call it channels, it will channel the customers to your content, which is your products. It's actually very simple. We just need to get all the pieces together. Well, that concludes that crazy session there, but it really is the culmination of all the episodes before. So I encourage you, if this is overwhelming, to go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes to build up to this.
And we will see you next week on a Tech Tuesday.
Thank you. Thanks for attending. See you guys.
Bye.